Holger Rune never intended to say it, but once he said it, there was no going back. He mentioned her name, Eala, after asking a brief question about other players during a casual conversation. The tennis world saw everything in the way he paused and moved his gaze, and what transpired next would transform a private admiration into the most talked-about revelation in the sport. Some players in the realm of professional tennis bring more to the court than just their own aspirations. They represent the aspirations of entire countries. For Denmark, Holger Rune, the Danish sensation with a fiery temperament and deadly backhand, had become precisely that. He has already defeated several Grand Slam winners, broken into the top 10, and became one of the ATP's most promising young players at the age of just 21. His ascent was not just swift, but also essential. Rune carried that burden like armor. Denmark had not seen a tennis star of this kind in decades. Another teenage tennis player was going through her own version of pressure-filled stardom on the WTA circuit. The trailblazing Filipino Eala was more than just a tennis player. She was a national symbol. When she won the U, she became the first Filipino to win a Grand Slam title at any level. Open Championship for girls singles. She was the first to enter the WTA Top 200 and later the Top 150, and her every match was about more than simply rankings and cash. It was about demonstrating that a country with more than 110 million citizens deserved to compete at the highest levels of tennis. Their paths had crossed occasionally at combined ATP/WTA events. The professional tennis circuit is smaller than people think. Future Hall of Famers sit next to aspiring qualifiers in the same hotels, practice facilities, and player lounges. Although their circles overlapped, Rune and Eala were never fully in the same spotlight. He was the temperamental genius fighting for Masters 1000 titles. As she worked her way up the main tour and through WTA 125 tournaments, she was the resolute barrier breaker. However, this is what made their interaction intriguing. In various settings, they embodied the same archetype. Both were carrying national expectations that would crush lesser athletes. Both were navigating the perilous waters of living up to early promise after achieving breakthrough success at an early age. Both have that uncommon blend of mental toughness and technical skill that distinguishes the good from the possibly great. And both recognize the special loneliness of being your nation's only representative at the top level of an individual sport, whether they acknowledged it out loud or not. Despite its global reach, the tennis community is close-knit. Players take note of one another. In locker rooms, they watch each other's games. Fitness trainers and practice courts are shared. They comprehend exactly what the person on the other side of the locker room or the internet is going through in ways that outsiders could never comprehend. Thus, when young athletes accomplish something noteworthy, their classmates notice. Other young players on the circuit witnessed Eala's victories in pivotal matches or her innovations for Filipino tennis. And one of those players paying notice was Holger Rune, despite playing on a different circuit and being geographically and competitively separated. The amount of attention he had been giving was unknown. Until that interview, that is. Not until his meticulously preserved professional facade gave up somewhat to expose something sincere beneath. Because, just like in life, the most genuine stories are frequently revealed by the unplanned moments in tennis. What happens when it's difficult to conceal admiration? It was meant to be a standard press requirement, the kind of interview that Holger Rune had conducted hundreds of times. A Masters 1000 events post-practice media session, where players provide well-rehearsed responses to questions posed by journalists. With the sound of tennis balls reverberating in the background, the scene was laid back in a shaded spot close to the practice courts. Seated comfortably in his practice gear, Rune appeared prepared to sail through another 15 minutes of normal tennis banter. The reporter began by asking the standard questions. His opinions on his draw, his preparation for the competition, his recuperation from a small ailment that prevented him from competing in the last event. Rune responded with the effortless ease of someone who had performed this dance 1,000 times. He did feel fantastic.
The knee was fine, yes.
Indeed, he was excited about the challenge. Typical, expert, and unmemorable. The question that altered everything then appeared. You've mentioned seeing other young players on tour before, Holger. Are there any up-and-coming female athletes whose games you watch or like, as the WTA side is also present this week? The purpose of the question was to pass the time and perhaps elicit a statement on the next generation of tennis players. The journalist most likely anticipated that Rune would bring up Coco Gauff or perhaps Mira Andreeva, the players who are already well-known and safe. However, Rune did not provide the obvious response. He hesitated. It wasn't the typical pause that athletes take to come up with a tactful answer. This was not like the others. Longer. His eyes shifted slightly to the left, which is how people's eyes move when they are retrieving real memories instead of reciting prepared talking points. Then, he grinned. It's hardly the calculated, professional smile he usually wears at press conferences. This was an uncontrollably ashamed smile. He said, "Alex Eala," which sounded softer than his earlier responses. She's doing amazing things for Filipino tennis, in my opinion. In order to gain opportunities at the major tour level, she had to qualify and advance via smaller events. This is evident in the way she fights in every match. It's very amazing. Something caught the journalist's attention. The faint hint of inquiry in their voice could be heard in the follow-up query. Do you monitor her outcomes? One more pause. For a moment, the self-assured top 10 player appeared to be a 21-year-old who had just been questioned about a crush as Rune moved in his seat. I mean, I believe that many of us do. Her game is quite comprehensive. You can't coach her exceptional movement and mental toughness, especially during close games. Either you have it or you don't. She possesses it. The singularity of this moment is what made it exceptional. Holger Rune wasn't making generic compliments. He wasn't stating that she works hard or is talented, which are platitudes used by players who don't genuinely follow someone's career. He was alluding to particular elements of Eala's style of play, her agility, and her ability to remain composed under duress. These weren't conclusions drawn from a single viral highlight. This was the analysis of a person who had watched several of her matches and paid enough attention to develop sincere technical judgments. Sensing they had come into something, the journalist moved forward. Have you two ever discussed tennis or practiced together? Rune's face changed once more. Now it was obvious to him that this line of inquiry had taken him in a different direction. We've had a few conversations about player lounge topics during tournaments, but she's incredibly committed. I honor that. Subsequently, he included a statement that would be the most scrutinized on tennis social media for the following week. I believe a lot of people will be surprised by her. She possesses all the necessary skills to rank in the top 50, if not higher. And when she does, people will recognize her uniqueness. When she does. Not if. When? That assurance, that precise forecast, that individual commitment to the future success of another player. The harm, or the disclosure, depending on your point of view, had already been done when the conversation went on for a few more minutes, going back to safer subjects like his serve technique and tournament strategy. The video was online in less than an hour. It was posted on tennis Twitter, tennis Instagram, and tennis TikTok in less than 2 hours. Filipino tennis fans produced compilation videos titled "Holger Rune Respects Alex Eala" set to heartfelt music in just 3 hours. Tennis gossip accounts began sharing side-by-side pictures of Rune and Eala within 6 hours, with captions speculating on the true meaning of the images. Professional athletes are taught never to do what Holger Rune had unintentionally done. Everyone in attendance felt that he had disclosed something sincere and intimate that went beyond mere professional deference. This was just the beginning of the internet's impending insanity. Detective work is what tennis fans are best at. Additionally, the tennis internet became something akin to a crime scene investigation unit when Holger Rune's interview was released. However, they were unraveling the enigma of Rune's true level of admiration for Alex Eala rather than solving murders. Twitter was where it all began. The interview tape was shared by a Filipino tennis fan account with a comment, "Holger Rune talking about Alex Eala with that smile. Holger, I see you." The quotation tweets started coming in within minutes. He actually said, "When she does, not if she does," I'm screaming, pausing before uttering her name. Professional athletes don't discuss other players in this manner unless there is a deeper issue. However, the actual investigation started when someone chose to look into Rune's past social media posts. At that point, things became intriguing. A user discovered a practice shot that Alex Eala had shared during a training session in Spain 7 months prior. A straightforward fire emoji from Holger Rune's verified account was buried in the comments, 73 comments below. No one had noticed at the time. Eala had roughly 200,000 followers, whereas Rune had 800,000. One emoji may easily blend in with the background.
Now, though,
It felt like proof now. A story that Eala had shared 5 months prior, celebrating her maiden WTA main draw triumph, was then discovered by someone. She tagged a couple sponsors as well as the competition. Holger Rune had seen it. The fan who found this had screenshot evidence from Eala's close friends list that had somehow leaked, even though Instagram doesn't openly display story views to everyone. Rune's account was displayed among the watchers in the screenshot. The detective job became more intense. An image from Indian Wells, one of the combined ADP WTA events, was found in the collection of a tennis photographer. In the background of a practice court shot, Holger Rune and Alex Eala were seen conversing while they waited for courts. They were giggling. For months had passed since the picture was shot. When it was first posted, it had about 40 likes. Now, it was being shared thousands of times with comments like, "Look at how he's looking at her, and they've been talking." Tennis drama-covering YouTubers started making videos. One title, Holger Rune's Secret Crush, explains why ADP players are interested in Alex Eala. One more. These videos were pushed to 100 by the algorithm. Hundreds of thousands of tennis enthusiasts who may not be familiar with either player. TikTok developed into its own speculative ecology. Using Rune's matches and Eala's matches, editors produced amorous montages set to popular songs about covert affection. Their playing techniques were contrasted in one film, which revealed unexpected parallels in their shot selection and court location, indicating that they may have talked about strategy. It received 2.3 million views. The Rune-Eala situation, everything we know, is a mega-thread made by the tennis community on Reddit. Every conversation, potential connection, and tournament where users were in the same city at the same time was compiled by the users. Someone found out that, although at different times, they had both had brief training at the Muratoglu Academy years prior. Another person discovered an old interview in which Eala talked about honing her skills by training against male players. Was Rune one of them? Something completely fresh was happening in the Filipino tennis community. Through her accomplishments, Alex Eala had elevated their nation's tennis profile, but this was not like that. One of the biggest emerging stars in the ADP was openly praising her with a degree of warmth and clarity that felt intimate. Morning radio programs in Manila debated it, as did Filipino sports talk shows. It was no longer just tennis news. It was also news about relationships, entertainment, and national pride. However, not everyone was having fun. Some of Eala's admirers wondered why there was a tail at all. One widely shared tweet stated, "She's an amazing player on her own. She is deserving of attention without a male player's approval." 15,000 people liked the tweet. It led to a parallel discussion on whether Eala's accomplishments were being undermined by the focus on Rune's remarks, which only made her noteworthy in the eyes of a guy. Danish supporters responded differently. The fact that their tennis hero displayed this human side was charming to some. Some were concerned that it was a diversion. One Danish tennis forum member suggested that Holger concentrate on his game rather than WTA players. This season has been uneven for him. The last thing he needs in the media is this. Professionals who cover tennis for major media agencies, known as tennis journalists, found themselves in a unique situation. Was this a true story? "I've covered tennis for 20 years, a reputable reporter tweeted. Players constantly look up to one another. But the way Rune spoke about Eala, that level of specific technical knowledge combined with that personal investment in her future success, I've genuinely never heard one player talk about another quite like that." When someone learned that Rune and Eala were both registered for a combination event that would take place in 2 weeks, the rumors intensified. The most eagerly awaited storyline